The night my brother got promoted to regional director, my mom cried. Happy tears, the kind she never shed for me. Not once in 7 years of building something from nothing. I stood in my parents' living room holding a glass of sparkling cider I hadn't touched, watching her dab her eyes with a paper napkin while my dad clapped my brother on the shoulder like he'd just won a Super Bowl. The house was full. My aunt and her husband drove 3 hours from Columbus. My cousin brought her kids. My dad's old work friends were there, guys I hadn't seen since high school graduation, shaking my brother's hand and saying things like, chip off the old block, and knew you'd go places. I had just crossed $1.4 million in annual revenue 2 weeks before that party. Nobody in that room knew. And in that moment, watching my mom loop her arm through my brother's and smile for a photo, I realized I had never once told them. Not because I was hiding it, because I had learned slowly and painfully over years that the information would not matter to them. They had already decided who I was. Let me go back. I am the middle child. My brother Elliot is 4 years older than me. My sister Brooke is 3 years younger. In our family, Elliot was the golden one from the start. Valedictorian, full ride to Ohio State, engineering degree, MBA from Indiana University's Kelley School of Business on our parents' dime. They refinanced part of the house for that MBA. I was there when they sat at the kitchen table and signed the papers. I was 22. I had already been running my freelance design business for a year and had never asked them for a cent. Not that they would have given it. When I told my parents I was not going back for a second semester of college, my mom went quiet in a way that felt louder than screaming. My dad looked at the table. Then he said, "You're going to struggle your whole life, you know that?" I told him I had clients, real ones, paying ones. He asked me how much. I told him. He shook his head slowly like I had said something embarrassing. $800 a month in client retainers did not impress my father, who worked 31 years in manufacturing and believed in pension plans and health insurance and the kind of stability you could touch. I understood that in some way. I really did. What I didn't understand was how it became the permanent story of who I was in that family, even when 800 became 3,000, even when 3,000 became 8, even when I moved out of my apartment above a laundromat and into a 2-bedroom condo I bought by myself at 28. Even then, at Christmas dinner that year, my dad toasted Elliot's new director-level title and said he was proud to have raised someone who knew the value of hard work. I was sitting right there. Brooke squeezed my hand under the table. She always noticed. She was the only one who did. I watch to be careful here, because this is the part where it's easy to make my family into villains and make myself into a saint, and neither of those things is entirely true. My parents were not cruel people. They were people who had a picture in their heads of what a successful life looked like, and I had stepped outside that picture, and they genuinely did not know how to update the image. My mom would call me every Sunday and ask how things were going, and when I said, fine, she believed me and moved on to telling me about Elliot. That was the whole call, most weeks. I stopped resenting it after a while. I just stopped expecting anything different. My business by that point was not freelance anymore, not really. I had started selling digital design templates on Etsy when I was 23, almost as a side experiment. Templates for small business owners, social media kits, brand identity packages, Canva presentations, that kind of thing. I priced them low at first, $7 to $15, and watched the reviews come in and tweaked and improved, and eventually started building out full brand kits that sold for $45 to $90. By year 3, I had moved everything to my own platform, stopped paying Etsy's cut, and started an email list. The email list changed everything. By 27, I had about 60,000 subscribers. By 29, 140,000. I launched a course for small business owners on building their visual brand without a design background. First launch brought in $212,000 in 11 days. I sat on my bathroom floor after I ran the numbers and just stared at the wall for about 20 minutes. I did not call my parents. I called Brooke. She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She said, I always knew you were going to do something like this. And I cried a little, not because of the money, but because of that. Because someone who shared my blood had always known. Elliot came into my life professionally about 8 months before the party. He messaged me on Instagram first, which felt strange because we had never been the kind of siblings who messaged each other on Instagram. He said he had heard through Brooke that I was doing well with the design stuff and that he wanted to catch up. We had coffee. He was warm, warmer than I was used to from him, and interested in a way that felt genuine. He asked smart questions about my business model, my traffic sources, my conversion rates. I remember thinking it was nice, finally, to have a conversation with someone in my family who spoke the language. He told me he was working on something on the side, a professional development platform for mid-level managers who wanted to move into executive roles. He said he had the content and the network, but not the branding or the visual identity, and he asked if I would consult. Not for free. He was specific about that. He wanted to pay me. I told him family discount, gave him a rate that was about 40% below what I charged clients. We started meeting bi-weekly. I built out his entire brand identity logo system, color palette, typography, brand voice guidelines, social media templates, the whole infrastructure. I showed him how to build a simple sales funnel. I connected him with my email platform and walked him through my list building strategy because I wanted him to succeed, because I thought this was the beginning of something different between us. He started using my personal brand name, not his platform's name, mine. My company name, the one I had built for 6 years, the one that had 140,000 people on its email list. He didn't copy it exactly. He shortened it, modified one word, made it look like a subsidiary or a sister brand. I noticed it in a LinkedIn post he published. I thought it was a mistake at first. I sent him a message and said, "Hey, I think there might be some brand confusion here. Can we talk?" He didn't respond for 4 days. When he finally called, he was calm, almost too calm. He said he had done some research and that my brand name, while recognizable in my space, was not trademarked and that his use of a similar name in a different market segment was legally distinct. He said it in the tone he used at work. I could tell, the corporate smooth tone that meant the conversation was already over in his mind. I felt the floor go soft under me. I asked him to clarify what he was saying. He said he wasn't trying to cause problems, he just wanted to position his platform in a way that could benefit from the goodwill my name had built. He actually used that phrase, the goodwill my name had built, and then suggested that if I was uncomfortable, we could work something out. Maybe a formal partnership, maybe some kind of revenue share arrangement. He was talking about monetizing my 6 years of work he had watched me do from 2 feet away. I got off the phone and called my attorney, who I had been working with on contract templates for 2 years. She told me I should have filed the trademark years ago, which she was right, and I knew it, and I had been meaning to do it for probably the last 18 months. She also told me we had strong grounds for a common law trademark claim based on 6 years of continuous documented use, and that we should move immediately. We filed that week. What happened next is where it gets complicated in the way that real family situations always get complicated, because it did not stay between Elliot and me. He called my mom. I don't know exactly what he told her. I know what she told me, which was that I was going after my brother over a business disagreement, and that she was heartbroken that I would do something like this to him after everything he'd done to help me. I asked her what specifically he had done to help me. She said he had given his time to my little venture. I reminded her that I had paid him for consulting work and also built his entire brand for 40% below market rate. She said I was being very cold about something that was hurting the family. I want to be honest about what that phone call did to me. It broke something. Not dramatically, not the way it breaks in movies where you scream and slam down the phone. It broke quietly. Like something inside me that had been holding on for years just let go. Because in that moment, I understood that there was no version of this story in which I would be right. There was no amount of evidence, no contract, no trademark filing, no attorney letter that would make my mother see me as the person who had been wronged. I was the one who had left the path. I was the one who made things difficult. I was the one who could have just let it go. Brooke called me that night. She had already heard from my mom. She said, "I believe you. I know exactly what happened. What do you need?" I told her I needed her to stay out of it because I did not want this to cost her relationships she still cared about. She argued. I held firm. She finally agreed, and then she cried a little, and I told her it was okay, and we stayed on the phone for another hour talking about nothing important, which was exactly what I needed. The legal process took 4 months. Elliot's attorney sent a response that tried to argue the names were sufficiently distinct and that there was no evidence of consumer confusion. My attorney filed documentation of 6 years of continuous commercial use, my trademark application date, 3 instances of actual consumer confusion we had found, people who had emailed me asking about Elliot's platform, thinking it was something I had launched, and the brand identity files I had created for him with metadata showing the original creation dates on my system. The metadata was the thing that settled it. When his attorney saw the file creation dates, the revision history, the email threads where I walked him through every element, it was clear he had not created anything. He had taken what I built for him and tried to extend it into territory that belonged to me. His attorney advised him to settle. He did. He signed an agreement to rebrand his platform completely and to stop using any name, mark, or visual element that could be confused with mine. He also paid my legal fees. He never apologized. Not in the settlement process. Not after. Not once. My dad called me when it was over. I expected more of the same. More disappointment. More, you should have found a way to work it out. Instead, he was quiet for a long time and then he said, I didn't know how much you'd built. He said Elliot had shown him some things. The numbers, I assume. I don't know what specifically. My dad said, I think I owe you an apology. It was 8 words. But from my father, who has never in his life used the word apology in reference to himself, it was something. I didn't know what to do with it. I still don't, if I'm honest. My mom and I are not in a good place. She loves me. I believe that genuinely. She also chose a version of events that protected her image of Elliot, and then watched the facts dismantle that version, and she has not found a way to reckon with that yet. Maybe she will. I'd stopped waiting on a timeline. Elliot and I do not speak. His platform rebranded, he kept going. I have no idea how it's doing, and I have not looked. What I have is this, a business I built from $800 a month to $1.4 million in annual revenue, a client list that keeps growing, a course that is now in its 4th iteration, an email list that just crossed 200,000 subscribers, and a trademark that is filed, approved, and mine. And I have Brooke, who texted me on the morning my trademark was officially registered and said, I'm getting this framed. I stood there reading that text in my kitchen, in the condo I bought by myself, with the morning light coming through the windows. And I thought about my dad's toast at that Christmas dinner years ago, the one about hard work and what it takes to succeed. I know what it takes. I just learned it without anyone in that room teaching me. I've thought a lot about what actually happened. Not the legal part, not the settlement, but the part underneath all of it. The part that made it possible in the first place. Elliot didn't steal from a stranger. He stole from someone he had watched struggle for years and quietly decided wasn't worth respecting. That's the thing people miss when they hear a story like this. The betrayal didn't start the day he filed to use my name. It started years earlier, every time he sat at that dinner table and said nothing while my dad implied I was wasting my life. Every time he nodded along, every time he let me be the cautionary tale so he could be the success story. By the time he came to me asking for help, he had already decided, somewhere beneath the surface, that what I had built was available to him, that my work was a resource, not a life. And the honest, uncomfortable truth is that I made it easier for him. Not because I was naive, I'd like to think I'm smarter than that, but because I wanted it to be real. I wanted a brother who saw me. I wanted someone in that family who finally understood what I'd been doing all those years. So when he showed up asking good questions and acting interested, I gave him more than I should have. I gave him access. I hadn't earned the right to give away yet. That part is on me, and I've had to sit with it. What I've come to understand is that actions build outcomes over time, whether we're paying attention or not. Elliot spent years taking the easy path, the one paved by my parents' expectations, the one that never required him to risk anything real. And there's a cost to that. even when it looks like success from the outside. People who never learn to build something from nothing start to believe that taking is the same as earning. That proximity to someone else's work is the same as doing the work. That is not a character flaw you wake up with one morning. It is something that develops quietly in small choices over a long time, and the same is true in reverse. Every month I kept going when the money was small. Every time I improved a template instead of giving up. Every time I reinvested instead of spending. Those choices compounded into something no one could take from me. Not fully. Because the knowledge of how I built it lived in me, not in a file or a brand name. Elliot could have taken my trademark if I hadn't caught it in time. He couldn't have taken what I know. He couldn't have taken the 200,000 people who found me because of years of showing up and delivering something real. Brooke texted me the morning the trademark was approved. I stood in my kitchen reading it and I felt, not triumphant exactly, more like settled. Like something that had been vibrating inside me for a long time finally went quiet. I think about what I want to carry forward from all of it. Not the anger, though the anger was real, and I'm not going to pretend it wasn't. What I want to carry is the clarity, the understanding that people show you who they are through patterns, not moments, and that it's worth paying attention. That building something real requires protecting it, not out of fear, but out of respect for your own effort. That asking for acknowledgement from people who have decided not to see you is a way of giving them power they haven't earned. I don't need my family to understand what I built. I built it anyway. That turns out to be enough.